This is Marriage on the Half Shell, Raw and Exposed. Well, we have been dipping into some social media over the last week or so, like we usually do. And last week, there was a lot of discussion around the topic of duty sex.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought we would touch on that one a little bit. We'll see where this one goes. So yeah, like I said, there was a lot of debate last week about, does it exist? Should it exist? Why does it exist? Should it? Is it a healthy part of a relationship, or does it mean your relationship is spiraling?
Right.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about this in the context of our own marriage. We've been married 35 and a half years.
Yeah.
So obviously this has come up. That's come up.
We never called it that.
No, we didn't never called it that. But
Well, we recognize it.
right.
Certainly.
Yeah. So what is it?
What is it? What is it?
Well, okay, go ahead.
So we always take I think the debate on the internet has to do with more has to do with a wife's duty to the husband,
Yes.
but we always take the view that it could go both ways, because you always have similar feelings at times and that sort of thing. So just when we talk about that, that's our perspective. But I mean, I think the discussion is the same,
Right.
right? So
Well, the discussion last week had to do with more of the female side of this, because I think that's
that's the majority.
yeah.
You know, it's usually the guy is always ready.
Yeah.
And the girl is sometimes ready.
You got to warm up the girl.
Well,
You know,
but it's not just that. It's more of the duty of, again, from our perspective, the duty of a wife to her husband,
right.
because the husband has the perspective is that the men have the biological need to have sex,
Yeah.
probably more often,
Yes. Definitely.
and that as a physical thing, as opposed to the desires that you as a husband and wife have for each other, right?
Right.
So that aside, it could go either way, but we understand that it's primarily, a wife's duty,
Yes.
primarily,
Right.
and we'll discuss why that's okay.
Yeah.
But what is it? It's where either spouse initiates, but the other spouse is not feeling it,
Yeah.
basically.
Right.
So let's put guardrails around this, right? It's not, I've got a really good reason to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Sick.
come up with something. I'm sick.
Injured.
I'm not feeling really well.
Yeah.
Can we wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
I mean, an injury should the spouse be coming to the other one? I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
It depends on obviously what the injury is and all that stuff. So, so we're not talking about it's a duty to have sex with your spouse, no matter what,
Yes.
right? But it should be with the mindset of, yeah, I want to do that for you, but it could be, we need to wait. So that's a valid reason.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about that.
Right.
But we should love each other, and love is an action, right? So take that. So this is talking about saying yes.
Saying yes more than no.
Saying yes more than no,
Yeah.
even if you don't feel like it in the moment.
Right.
And we'll say in the moment because, well, we'll get into that.
So our
Okay.
experience is probably a little more typical of most married couples experiences who have been married a long time, say 10, 15 plus years, right?
Sure.
Because, you know, we've discussed this before. When you get married, there's that honeymoon phase and you can't keep your hands off each other.
Right.
We definitely experienced that. But then you settle into your schedules, you start having babies. There's you know, things happen, right? Like life happens.
Life happens.
Life happens.
Exactly.
So this is something that we have definitely gone through in our marriage. Obviously, we've got 6 kids. We had them fairly close together. There was a 13-year window in there where I was either pregnant, nursing, or somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
So think of being constantly postpartum, pretty much for 15 years.
Yep.
That's pretty much where we're at. So, and it's not that I didn't have a desire. It was an awful lot of fatigue, an awful lot of being touched out. You know, any
Like
mom
kids
who,
are hanging on you.
yeah. I mean, kids are hanging on me all day. Somebody's always touching me. I'm nursing a baby, you know, whatever it is. And then you would come home and want to have sex, and I would be
Obviously,
like,
after the kids
Yeah.
went to bed.
yeah. But, you know,
But if you have older kids
yeah.
that don't need to be necessarily...
Well, I'm talking
you know,
about just that window of time, though. That's
understood,
what I'm talking
but
about.
this whole discussion has to do... You've got different seasons in
Yes,
life
yeah.
where your ability to just pick up and go run to the bedroom is going to be limited
Mm-hmm.
by life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop just because your kids get older, right?
No.
Now, once they've all moved out, then you're back to the way
Yeah.
it was before you had kids.
I mean, you hope that if you implement what we're about to discuss, you will go back, hopefully go back to...
Well, that kind of brings up the next thought I had was, you should not let sex. You should always want to have sex, no matter where you are in your marriage, no matter when you are in your marriage, right?
You should always want to, because, like I said, women need a little...
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't mean, okay, you're turned on.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the desire to have sex is there. Yeah, we need to, and what we're going to talk about, you know, the foreplay and
Yeah,
the flirting
yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
but the desire is there. It's not you know what, I never want to have this again. Or, you know, once a
This
year.
is just for procreation.
Well, there's that.
Yeah.
But we're not even talking about that. I mean,
Right.
We're talking about all the way through,
Yeah.
you know, and it should never end.
Right.
I mean, to the best of your ability.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you stay in shape,
Yes, there's that.
You know,
That's
but
your
that's not
health
what
is
we're- that's not
definitely
what
a
we're talking
factor.
about
No,
here,
it's
but-
not. No.
but the point is, you know, it shouldn't, the desire should never go away.
Right.
And if it does, then there's something else going on,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And you should work together to solve that problem.
Right.
Rather than just let it happen. Where, okay, you know, we're 45, 50, the kids are in college now, but we just don't want to. We still love each other, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, you know, and I'm thinking, why? Why would you let that go? Right? I mean, it's part of coming together as a couple, being together as a couple, maintaining connection as a couple.
Yeah. Your intimacy, your connection,
Right.
all of that
And
stuff.
so there's, you know, obviously there's emotional
Right.
intimacy, being able to talk about things. We've talked all about that.
Yeah.
But this is a big, this physical intimacy is part of what helps hold your marriage together too,
Right.
right? And keeps it exciting
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
So that you want to be with each other.
Right.
And then you don't start looking outside the marriage for some excitement, which you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because that'll ruin your marriage and your family. anyway, so our experience was, yeah, we were up and down,
Yes.
but we always tried to keep that flame going, all
Right.
the way through.
Right.
And we've talked before in previous episodes about how it's better now than it was even before we had kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because I'm.
And there's still struggles.
Yeah, because
Things
I'm
we have
getting
to
older,
solve.
going through menopause and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. There's, there's
Right.
there's things
Well,
going on there.
there's
But,
another reason right there. It's
Mhm.
like, men don't go through menopause. And we understand that, have this understanding about it.
Yeah.
That there's going to be a lessening of desire
Mhm.
as women go through it, but that doesn't mean you can't work to solve the problem,
right. And you should.
and you should. And
Yes.
that's my point here. So we're not talking about, I read something and I just, went right off. So we were talking about seasons. Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
Okay.
So there's honeymoon phase. We've talked about that.
Mhm.
The kids phase.
Yeah.
What we'll see often is, I'll say, women will use sex to kind of lock down the guy, get him to marry her.
Yeah.
And then it slowly starts to,
Fizzle out.
fizzle
Yeah.
out. And here's the, and the point is you've just gotten your spouse, your guy,
Yeah.
mostly, to commit to you
Mhm.
and forsake everyone else in the world.
Right.
And then you're not going to have sex with him? How unfair is that?
Right.
Right? And here you've done the same thing. You've given up, and you made that promise too, of forsaking all others. And
Right.
You think you can just run out and get some excitement somewhere else? You shouldn't. Or, what if he said, well, you're working now, so I don't have to work anymore. And he sits at home. Right?
Yeah.
So I think what I'm getting at here is, you could say sex is a duty and you can grouse about it and gripe about it, but you know what? Work is a duty too. That men, and for wives who work, yes, but men tend to be protector, provider in that role, and that's a duty. Do you think we like to go to work all the time? But we do it,
Yeah.
right? Or cutting the grass or cleaning the house. I mean, there are duties we all do.
Right.
So at times sex can be a duty, but it's really a way of showing love.
Yes. Oh, definitely that for sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about the physical aspect of
Yeah.
of love, but even if you're not in the mood, as it were, but you say, okay, it's kind of a sacrificial thing, right? The husband goes
Right.
to work, sacrifices his day,
Yeah.
to do something he probably doesn't necessarily want to be doing to provide for the family.
Right.
You sacrifice 10, 15, 20 minutes, and, well, we'll get into the other parts of that, but it's an act of sacrifice,
Yes.
right? To maintain your marriage, maintain the connection. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't. Not at all. And there's been, there's a lot of negative negativity going around about the word duty as well.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's not
and I don't. A duty is that doesn't make it a bad thing,
right.
right?
Right.
I mean, duties are just things that you have to do.
Sure.
You know, and that's really that's probably I haven't looked up the definition. That's probably the definition. Just things you have to do.
Yeah. But I think it's lost the aspect of, I want to say the word honor to it.
Yes.
You know, when I was in college, I was in the Corps Cadets, and it was a military thing, right? And while I didn't go into the military, you could be in the Corps Cadets at this college without actually going into the military.
Mm-hmm.
And there was discipline, there was camaraderie, and all that stuff that you get. And then there were duties. You had to get up, and you had to go do the formation, and you had to do PT. And,
Yeah.
But there were other things related to duties that we had as student cadets.
Right.
That, other college students didn't have to do. Right. But they were duties to maintain the structure and the protection of the dorm and the company.
Mm-hmm.
But there was honor to it. Right. And it's not just you know what I'm talking about? It's
Yeah.
like if you're out, because if you go, again, from the military perspective, if you go to war, you want to have honor with your company, with your squad, with your brothers. And so, yeah, duty, but there's also a desire to it.
Right.
If that makes sense. But I think in today's culture, we get so individualistic, and I'm all about individualism because we're all unique. But at the same time, we've lost that sense of working together. And when you say the word duty, it seems to have lost that sense of honor to it.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So another thing we can discuss here is
The Hollywood.
Hollywood love. Like, obviously we all have our TV shows and our movies and, whatever that we like to watch. And ladies, I have shot this warning over the bow before. Please do not watch too many rom-coms. And please put down the crappy romance novels. I won't say the other word. It's very tempting because that's exactly what they are. Hollywood has a picture of love that is completely unrealistic. You have a 2-hour window to tell this story, and the way they portray love is constant desire and sex. And if you're walking out a relationship with your husband and you are going to be married to him for 60 years, that's not always going to be the case. Love isn't going to be constant desire and sex. It's just not.
Yeah. Well, love isn't the feeling.
No, there's that. That's what I'm saying. They portray love as just those two things and not
Right.
the day-to-day stuff that you do with each other, separately from each other. You're building your home, you're building your family, you're taking care of people. There's, I'm like,
Right.
I have friends right now, a couple of friends who are going through they're going through some trials because their parents are getting older.
Yep.
Right. So there's and I kind of went through this with my parents as well. They weren't old when they died, but they were very sick. So, but we had to make sacrifices,
Mm-hmm.
right? I would jump in the car and drive to Indiana, and I could be gone anywhere from 3 days to a week. Sometimes, that's just how it worked out. And there were times I had to drop everything and just go.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what my a couple of my friends are going through right now. And so that, that's what life is. This is what marriage is. And you are not going to read a romance novel, and there's not going to be anything in there about when you're sitting on the toilet and your husband comes in brushing his teeth and turns the shower on. I mean, this is real life. This is the real thing, or, he rolls over to kiss you in the morning and he has horrible morning breath and you kiss him anyway. That's never in a romance novel. Come on.
No,
that's
usually.
That's there's
I've never read any, so
what? Well, but it's not. Because they have one thing you'll never read about in a romance novel is somebody taking a dump. There's real life, and then there's that crap, and you fill your mind with that, and it's going to spill over into your mindset about your relationship with your spouse. So, and we talked about sex on kind of on a spectrum. I think we did an episode on sex and we talked about this a little bit, but an old friend of ours a long time ago said, sex it's either like a Big Mac at McDonald's, or then sometimes you get the filet mignon with the butter on it. Yep. And it can be everything in between, but both are good. Both taste good, right? One's better for you than the other, but you cannot have a steady diet of filet. So the occasional McDonald's hamburger in your marriage is going to be okay. Yeah. That's okay too. And we also talked about how you need to build this culture outside of the bedroom.
Well, that's a whole thing.
Right.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. So we've done obviously multiple podcasts on building your marriage, keeping your marriage together, things you can do, and that all plays into this.
Sure.
Right.
So we've talked about training each other, but that has a lot to do with gratitude.
Yes.
So if you're thanking each other for things, and even things that you might, there's this other thing out there on the in social media talking about, why should I have to thank my husband or thank my wife for doing the bare minimum? And it's like, you know what? Because you love them, and because you want them to know that you appreciate that they're doing what they should do.
Right.
Right. And they want to appreciate you doing what you should be doing. Right. It's not it's just something that builds your connection. It's just another one of those things that builds your connection.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this is about maintaining your connection to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just going to have this attitude of, well, they did the bare minimum, so I'm just not going to say anything. And it's like, most of the time what they're talking about is not really the bare minimum. It's being a good father, or being a good husband, or being a good wife.
Right.
A good mother. It's like you're doing those good things. It's not the bare minimum. Right. So you should be grateful.
Well, and Dr. Peterson has talked about this. If you don't show gratitude and express that, then what you're doing is punishing good behavior.
Yes.
Because the person never feels appreciated, right, on a regular basis. And that's the wrong culture. You don't want to build that culture in your marriage. Right. Like, if I could sit down and talk to a young couple who's just about to get married, what's one piece of advice? I've actually shared this on social media, if I could share one piece of advice, that would be it. Start saying thank you right away, even while you're engaged. Mm-hmm. Build those habits, right? Right. And continue to do that, because it really will shift your focus to the little things that your spouse does for you that deserve appreciation on a regular basis.
Yes.
So you want to keep that gratitude culture going outside of the bedroom.
Right.
It will make you more receptive when your husband comes to you and he wants to have sex. You know, it's going to make you more receptive.
Sure. I mean, if you're thanking each other through the day for whatever, and it doesn't have to be like 100 times a day, but
you and I kind of do that, but it's kind of a habit now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit of hyperbole, but but the point is, yes, it shows that you appreciate it. It's like, and that brings up this, you know, even if I want to have sex and you were kind of like, okay, and it was more of a duty, and in the moment, and then we're done, and I express gratitude, not in the, you know, thank you for having sex, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, you know, I recognize that, you know, you weren't, you know, immediately turned on or at the same level as I was at the moment or whatever, you know, but I appreciate that, you know, and then so there's this gratitude, and you're thinking, so the next time I come to you, then you're going to be more receptive because, you know, I appreciate it. It's not just that I'm unappreciative.
Right.
That's a punishment, and people don't do what they're not, when they don't get shown appreciation for things, they don't want to do it.
Incentive.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And ladies, I mean, honestly, if your husband is coming to you frequently, well, A, you need to step back and evaluate. If he's coming to you a lot, you need to step back and evaluate, how often are we doing this, and is it enough? But B, if he's coming to you often, you should also appreciate the fact that he still wants you.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been married a long time. We've been married a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm not in as good a shape as I was when we first got married. Neither one of us is. We're getting old, you know? But it's still, that desire for each other is still there.
Yes.
Because we've built that over a number of years.
Yep.
Right? And we really want to maintain that connection because we're here by ourselves, you know, we're empty nesters now. And we want to maintain our connection to each other.
Yes.
So, you know, be appreciative of the fact that he still desires you. Even if it's what you would consider more frequently than you would want. There's negotiation there. Like you could sit down and negotiate that, right?
When you say more frequently than you would want, it's like, yeah, I mean, we're always at different energy levels at times.
Yes.
You know, like I can be more excited than you, but and then it could be vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the frequency, you know, thing, you know. Now I'm doing it. Trying to keep my thoughts together. But if one of you is every day and the other is once a week is enough, it's like you negotiate.
There's a balance in there somewhere, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you want to maintain that connection, and you want to have an alive marriage. One of the other things we wrote was, you know, a dead bedroom leads to temptation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it also leads to a dead marriage. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want? Do you want to be living with a roommate?
Yeah. I mean, is that really what you want? Why did you marry them if you're just having a roommate?
Yeah.
You know, did you? It makes marriage kind of transactional.
Yeah, that's yucky.
Yeah, it is very yucky.
It's
It's like, you know, you work and bring me money and I get to buy things, so I'll have sex with you. That's not love.
No, but that is there's another Hollywood thing right there, because there's a lot of Hollywood shows that portray marriage in that light as well, and it's either way too romanticized,
Yeah.
to the point of being ridiculous, or it's what you're talking about, where it's transactional in a roommate marriage.
Right. It's a roommate marriage.
There's never been, okay, well,
What?
I'll say the Cosby Show portrayed marriage the way it's supposed to be. And I know there's controversy around Bill Cosby, whatever. I'm talking about the show. That show
The show.
portrayed marriage in the most positive light that I've ever seen, other than, say, those shows back in the 50s. You know, Leave It to Beaver and that kind of thing. Right? I mean, those shows portrayed marriage in a positive light.
Sure.
Right? Nowadays, you're not going to find that. I don't
Generally.
know that there's a show. There's now the show that we've watched recently where
Not
it portrays
recently, no.
marriage in a positive light. You know, it's just not there.
So anyway, what else?
So marriage shouldn't be
A series.
a series of transactions. That's not, you know. The other thing, as far as the culture outside the bedroom, you said something about flirting.
Right.
Yes.
Getting to there. Yeah. There's two big points that are still in my head.
Right.
That's one of them. So, you know, you can. It's easy to flirt with each other when you're first married,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing that begins to wane a little bit, especially once you have kids and you think can't flirt as much, but you should. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with flirting appropriately with your kids around.
Yeah.
You know,
They need to
'cause
see you,
need
actually.
to
They
see
need to
you.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they need to see you loving each other
Yeah.
and being in love with each other still.
Yeah.
So if you have this, so we talked about gratitude. So there's the thankfulness, and encouragement to do things for each other and all that. And then there's flirting. It's just part of this culture of marriage that we're talking about, where if you're flirting, you are maintaining the heightened desire for one another.
Yeah. Definitely.
Right. Was there another part of that besides flirting?
I
Oh,
don't-
well, foreplay.
Oh,
I mean,
well, of course.
you know,
Yeah.
in a sense, flirting is foreplay, but it's almost like if you break those two apart, you know, flirting is kind of like maybe there's more appropriateness to it, especially if you have kids in the house. But then there's the foreplay, and foreplay doesn't start 3 minutes before you start or after you get in bed. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's an aspect of it there as well, but there's an aspect outside the bedroom, and you can maintain that through your day, and that helps with being ready to go,
Yeah. So to speak.
so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, if it's like a morning thing, then what was we just heard an example? It's like, where the guy's like, you know, 10 in the morning, that's his time. You know, he likes, because of the way their marriage dynamic works, it's like that's best for him. So he's like, okay, and so his wife says, okay, you know, and she's like, this is not. I'm working. This is not what I want to be doing in the moment, but okay. And then that develops into later on in the day, or the next day, I suppose, however it works, that if it's later, you know, she's more open.
Yeah.
So
you get the
you know,
cheeseburger and the steak.
You get the cheeseburger and the steak. Yeah. And it could happen the same day if you're young enough, I guess. So there's that. So keep that going. But
I mean, you and I flirt every day.
sure, we do.
You know, we do it a lot, and we we try to do it in front of our grandkids. That's amusing.
Yeah.
Like we were over there babysitting last week, and they were building a bonfire or whatever, and you were helping them, and I said, "Oh, you're so cute," and I said that in front of my granddaughter, and she goes, "Ew, he's a boy." Well, you're 7. I guess that you know. She goes, "He's not cute." I said, "Okay, well."
Anyway, so I think part of this the duty part of it is you might not be in the midst of foreplay all day. You know, it might,
right.
You know, maybe you've not been able to. You know,
Yeah.
It more often than not, it could be. This was a special case, you know, because the guy, his wife was working on
She's home business
during the week, but he only has to work
4 days a week.
The way his schedule works, he works 4 days a week, and then he's off one of the days.
Yeah.
And so 10 a.m. works, right? If you're, you know, you got your 5 days a week job, or even 6, and you are gone all day, and then, you know, there's no time for foreplay. You know, because you get home, and then if you have kids, you're not foreplaying.
Yeah.
You might flirt, and you should, but you're not going to have the full-on foreplay while you're having dinner with the kids and doing the homework and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, this is just this is where the negotiation.
So you work it out. Yes.
I mean, none of this sounds romantic.
It doesn't.
You know, but here's the thing: you also have to make time for those really high-powered, intimate connections too.
Yes,
you know,
you do.
This is when we follow Trey and Lee Morgan. They do marriage retreats and whatnot, and they do the rule of 2s. You know, is it every 2 weeks you go on a date?
Yeah,
every 2 months,
yeah.
You know, you go on an overnighter. Well,
right.
Why do you think married couples go on overnighters?
Yeah.
That's, you know, it's not. I mean, I guess some couples could go away because they can't get any sleep at home and they just get a good night's sleep. But for the most part, married couples go on overnighters so that they can reconnect with each other without interruption.
Right.
Right.
But we've talked about that before. You know, it's like we think once a week date.
We do. Yeah, that's we've always kind of maintained that. But I understand that some couples may not be able to.
Yeah, I get that. And,
you know, I get that.
But I wouldn't say have the time of reconnection like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you might go away once every 2 or 3 months.
Right.
Know, but try to find time without going away too.
Right.
Right. So, but this is off the topic of the duty sex part of it. Yeah. But I think if you do those things, I think what we're talking about is the marriage culture. And if you do those things where you do reconnect and you maintain the connection
yes, we're talking about outside the bedroom, and then
in the small things, then when the time comes that it's like, okay, one of you's ready to go, and it's like, okay, let's do this. The other will be the culture's there, so it's like, okay, you know, I'm not all fired up right now, but I will.
Yeah.
And then that brings me to the other point I thought of. Is,
okay.
One big comment in one of the threads we looked at was talking about how it's like, yeah, you don't feel like it right now,
mm-hmm.
you know, but if you started as a duty, it's like, okay, not with a bad attitude, you know, it's like, all right, you know, none of that, but just, okay, let's go. And then you get started, and then it's kind of like exercising. It's like, I don't want to exercise. I never want to exercise. But once I've done it, I'm glad I did.
Yeah, you feel better.
So you have this, or you get into it,
mm-hmm.
or whatever. So it's the same thing with this. It's like, once you start, it's like, okay, you're getting into it more.
Yeah.
So it's not it doesn't have to be negative. This negative thing, if you just think of it as the way some of the poor people who were debating the other side, where I think their mindset is the whole Disney romance thing, and I've got to feel the love.
There was some
and,
of that.
And all of that.
Yeah, there was some of that.
Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And I'm thinking, so what happens a year or 18 months after you're married? What happens?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't feel the love anymore, and you tear apart your family because you want some excitement. Yeah. I mean, that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, the flip side of that is I did see some men, primarily, commenting on this topic and saying, well, if that's what your wife does, you need to leave her.
Yeah, and that's dumb, too.
It's like, but, this topic of duty sex, it needs to be put in its own category. It is going to happen in your marriage, necessarily. It will necessarily happen. Yes, yeah. It just will. And you need to anticipate it. You need to prepare yourself for it. But you also need to do everything else that we've been saying. Flirt with each other.
Yeah.
Express gratitude. Make sure you're expressing love to your spouse on a daily basis. Right. All those things, the outside of the bedroom. Yeah. Right. And then, it will feel like less of a duty. We've put it in this category, but.
Well, it's the definition of how people were talking about it. It's like, this is a duty.
Yes.
But we didn't mention this, but, duties are in a sense, they're guardrails for your relationship, right?
Yes.
Or for your life.
Mm-hmm.
The duty is don't flirt with another woman.
Yeah.
Right? Or another man.
Right.
Right? It may be fun, but the duty is do not do that because it will get you in trouble,
mm-hmm.
and it will hurt your relationship.
Yeah.
Only flirt with your spouse, with your husband or wife. So it's not a negative thing. It's really a positive thing. And this is one duty, sex, I guess, if you could say. It's not always a duty, but when it is, it's like, it's a guardrail.
Right. It's also, you put here some sacrificial love.
Well, the sacrificial love. Well, that's where the gratitude comes in.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it earlier. It's I'm sacrificing to do this for you because I love you.
Yes.
Right. Just like I sacrifice 8 to 10 hours of my day to work where I don't necessarily want to do, that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be doing something else, but I sacrifice that because I love you.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so
I do the same thing with the gym.
You do.
I would rather lay on the couch and just watch TV all day.
We both work out. But
it's
for our own health, but it's for each other too.
It really is. And exercise needs to be seen that way anyway. From both sides of that coin. So
this could grow into a bigger home guardrail subject, but just keeping it on the subject of sex.
Mm-hmm.
The guardrails about all the other things that you do to maintain your relationship.
Right.
There are a lot of things that are duties that you should do, and one of them is sex with each other. One of them is working. One of them is maintaining your health. One of them is forsaking all others and really meaning it.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Right.
And there's probably other things too. But you could say those are duties, and they are.
Mm-hmm.
But they're there to help you maintain your relationship and make it better, not just maintain it, but protect it.
Protect it, yes. Yeah. It's guardrails. Guardrails, what do? They protect you.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
So, I did have some final points here.
Okay.
This one is going to end up being a little shorter than we would normally go, but I guess we'll just go with it.
Sure, why not?
We've got a couple other topics we may do podcasts on
I'm sure we will.
coming in the next couple of months. We've been talking about some things.
Yeah.
So what I wrote down. What are you laughing about over there?
I love those podcasters who say, I start talking about this subject, but no, I'm going to talk about that later. And then they never do.
I didn't say what the topic was, did I? Nope.
I find that funny. Anyway, go ahead.
So
Final thoughts.
So my final thoughts. So just keep in mind that the crap you see on TV and the crap that you read in those romance novels,
yeah.
I just left a little blank space there. You put the word in. You can put your own adjective in.
You really have
a vendetta?
feelings about those.
I do. I really do. I have a lot of feelings. They don't portray marriage the way it really is. They don't portray marriage as going through seasons of life and how things change and, you know, how you actually take care of each other and all of that, right? So when you're walking through these seasons where you feel like this is a duty and, you know, I'm not sure I enjoy it, understand that everything is a season, right? And that season will come to an end. Your house full of little children that don't sleep, that will eventually come to an end, and your children will sleep like regular people. You know, your teenagers who have to be driven around all over the place and taken to their job and taken to the sports thing, and, you know, you're doing travel this and field trips and all that kind. That's all going to come to an end too. Eventually, they will be able to drive themselves to their job, or, you know, they'll graduate and move out, whatever it is, right? Everything is a season. Mm-hmm. And you need to keep that always in the back of your mind when you're going through this, and don't let the words duty sex infect your marriage in a bad way. That's your mindset about it all the time. You know what I mean?
That it's a duty all the time.
Yeah.
Definitely not that.
Right.
Or that I guess you could say it's a good, when it happens, it's a good thing.
Yes.
If you have the right mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not always duty sex. You should develop. Am I messing up your final point?
No, not at all.
Okay. But, you know, don't always let it be mac and cheese or the McDonald's hamburger all the time.
So,
okay.
And this is, you know, and also like we've been discussing, just make sure that you're establishing those good habits when you're going through those seasons in your marriage.
Wherever you are in your marriage,
you need to establish. Yeah. Establish those good habits. A habit takes, what did my dad say? 21 days to make or break.
Whatever the latest research is.
No, that's still out there. Yes.
Okay.
I just read it again today. Some fitness influencer put that out there. It takes 21 days to make or break a habit. So, but after the 21 days, it becomes part of you, and you start to need it. You know, and that's when it becomes like almost part of your personality, in a sense. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So start working on those habits that we discussed: gratitude, flirting, you know, foreplay, you know, where it's appropriate, those kind of things. Right. Do those things even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it. You know, always be on the lookout for the things your spouse does for you. Always, you know, just keep your eyes open.
Especially when you don't feel like it.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we talked about within reasonable reason early on, but generally try to say yes 90% of the time.
Yeah, as much as humanly possible.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, so I think it's a mindset. Your mindset around what duty sex is colors your feelings about it.
Yes.
Right. And if you look at it as this is a positive protection, it's a act of love, that sort of thing. And I'm going to get into it. I'm just not revved up right now, or whatever.
Yeah.
If you have the right mindset around it, then it's not. It might still be the Big Mac, right? But it's not. It's not a bad thing. It looks, it becomes a good thing in your mind, and you know that it's producing positive effects.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Okay.
That's my final thought.
Yeah, I think I've given my final thoughts as well here.
Okay.
So, we just, like I said, we wanted to discuss this because it came up. I don't know how it came up last week. Somebody made a post about it on Twitter or whatever it was, and and
I
it
think there's
became
so much,
this controversial, and I was like,
well, it's controversial because
you attach the word duty to it, it immediately becomes negative.
There's that, but I think there's two extreme camps when it comes to relationships out there on social media. So so here's a final thought.
Okay.
Is when you're listening to social media, whether it's the guy saying, "Oh, sex is just a duty to her, just divorce her."
Yeah.
That's extreme. That's crazy, right? The women who are going, it's okay to leave the good guy. You need some excitement. And underneath that, they're not saying, rip apart your family and ruin your children for your own happiness.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've talked about happiness. So go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
And we may do another one on that.
Right.
But those two extremes, if you're hearing relationship advice on social media and it's kind of extreme, then throw it out. Because it takes this view, it takes a view like the men who, it's kind of like the red pill community. We've talked about that, where all women are just these flighty, emotional, that's all they are. They're just stupid and they just want you for your money, and it's like, that's not true. Now, it depends on, the woman and how she was raised and all of that.
Right.
So, yeah, you're going to see some out there who are raised wrong, and that's what we talked about, vetting.
Yes.
Vetting. But I think this is all getting to why this came up. I think this came up because it's from the other side, the red pill equivalent of the woman community, where, man-hating feminists or whatever they are. Maybe it's not even feminists, but just people influenced by them who, men just want sex and that's all they care about, and they're just worthless, and all that.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of how they got started. And we just wanted to kind of answer that and say, we don't want our relationships to be extreme, at the extreme end of either end, because that's really destroying the interaction between men and women in society today. I think it was already kind of happening, but social media really is
social media is kind of,
But the point is, people listen to it.
Yeah, they do.
And I know this is social media, it's a podcast, but we're still married. I find it funny that all these people out there giving relationship advice are either divorced or never married.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I think it's usually the men. Yeah, most the men or the women. It's usually they went through a bad divorce and they're bitter about it, and that's what
it colors their whole.
They suddenly become a dating coach. It's like, are you kidding me? You couldn't keep your marriage together.
Yeah.
You did it all wrong from the beginning. Yeah. So we're still married.
And we're happy.
And we have sex a lot. So
thanks for exposing that. Sorry, kids. Yeah.
our kids don't listen to this podcast.
I know.
So
I know.
though maybe their cousins do. Hey,
I
so, but the point is, you can look forward to a great relationship far into the future.
Right.
So,
This is just part of
that's
maintenance.
my
This is
final
maintenance.
thought.
Yes.
I think we're done.
I think we are.
All right. Close us out.
Well, have a nice evening, y'all. We will talk to you again very soon. This has been Marriage on the Half Shell.